By Jonathan Downey, owner of the Milk and Honey Bar and restaurant in London, which can't reopen on the 4th of July and is in danger of going out of business. And I'm sorry to introduce you in such a grim way, but how are things looking at the moment?
Well, they're not looking very good at all. We've been in business there for 18 years, since April 2002. We didn't pay our March rent quarter. We've not been able to pay June rent quarter, which is due today. And we've probably be unable to pay our September rent quarter unless we can get a deal with our landlord. Our landlord's not at the moment agreeing to any rent-free period for us for the period we've been closed, and that means we've not been able to generate any revenue to pay our rent. So after 18 years, it looks like we won't be reopening Milk and Honey anytime soon.
Are the landlords sympathetic in any way?
Well, we have 6 different landlords in London, and 4 of them have not had any contact with me since April, despite many chasing emails. And 1 landlord that's put the matter into the hands of his solicitors. So we're not really getting anywhere. And I think that's typical of most hospitality tenants at the moment. Some of the larger corporate landlords have been more cooperative and more prepared to give tenants rent-free periods and to defer payments throughout next year, etc. But generally speaking, we're not getting much help. I think one of the reasons for that is, despite all these new support measures from government, landlords have not themselves been given much help from government yet. They can't access the business interruption loan scheme, for instance, and they should be given some kind of tax break or incentive, I think, to provide rent-free periods for tenants. If we help landlords, landlords can help tenants. So
landlords and tenants singing from the same hymn sheet, if you like. But you mentioned government support so far, presumably with furloughing and other measures, that has helped to some degree.
Yeah, the furlough has been fantastic for our teams, for our people. That doesn't really help the business so much. The business rates relief break has been superb. But again, if we're not open, we're not taking any money. If we're not taking any money, we can't pay our rent. We've had a VAT deferment as well, which will help. But we need to see much more support from government. We need to see a national solution to the rent problem. We've had 2 rent quarters now where most hospitality businesses have been unable to pay their rent. And it's just kicking the can down the road unless we agree some rent freeze with landlords. And I think we require government to produce a legislative framework at no cost to the taxpayer so that landlords and tenants can agree a deal. And landlords need help with their bankers because in many cases they've borrowed large amounts of money on premises they're no longer receiving rents from. So there's a whole raft of issues here that need to be sorted out. And we need government to step in and provide a legislative framework for us. They've given us this code of conduct, but at the moment that's voluntary. And so not really worth the paper it's written on. And I think it's incredibly naive to think that a voluntary code of conduct is going to make much difference to most tenants. So I'd like to see something more mandatory from them.
Jonathan, is there a different approach from the different landlords that you deal with, or are they all pretty much in the same position here?
I think generally from the larger corporate landlords, the institutional landlords, they have reputational risk issues to deal with. And they're well resourced, and they can provide help. In some cases, they run large estates where they rely heavily on food and beverage and retail to bring people to the area, so they're much more cooperative. But by far the large majority of cases, almost all landlords, are expecting full rent for the full amount of time we've been forced to close down by government order. And that's just not realistic in these circumstances. They have to share in the pain. We have lost 100% of our revenue during the last 14 weeks. Some landlords need to realise it's about time they took a little bit of a hit too, because we've had 100% hit, and they need to share in some of that pain.
But I'm surprised to hear you say that, because you'd have to be on another planet to think that that you would be in a position to pay money. We all know what's going on. Landlords, of course, must know the pressure you're under.
Yeah, you'd think so, but that's just not the case at the moment. I mean, my own example is typical. 6 landlords, only 1 of them has agreed to talk to me. 1 of them is suing me, and 4 of them are ignoring me. And that is absolutely typical across the country. I've got a WhatsApp group with 3,000 people in it called Hospitality Union, and I get hundreds of messages each week. I'm getting really clear feedback from what most hospitality tenants, pubs, bars, cafes, restaurants around the country, what they are having to deal with. And they're all in the same boat as me, almost without exception.
I mean, just from the outside, who is a landlord going to get to rent the property if they kick you out? Everybody's in the same boat here.
Exactly. But I think they're in such a strong negotiating position because at the end of September, if the lease forfeiture moratorium is not extended, they can just step in to the sites, change the locks, repossess the premises, and then they hold all the cards, and they will then press for rent arrears to be paid. It's a really strong negotiating position. It's a waiting game for them. They're hoping that we will blink first and, pay cash over. We have got cash in the business. We haven't got enough cash to pay all of our rents on time in the way they're used to. And we've also got to spend money to reopen again. That's happening in the next couple of weeks for some businesses. So there is a lot of money going out over the next few weeks for hospitality operators. It can't all be going out on rents. It will mean we won't be able to open in the way that government wants us to get the economy going again.
You must be getting a lot of, pressure, I don't know, but a lot of worry from your employees.
Yeah, at the moment, we can't confirm. We've got 90 staff in our 4 sites in East and South East London. We can't confirm to our staff yet which of those sites will reopen, when we'll reopen, or if at all we will ever reopen. I expect at least 2 of those 4 sites, our street fee sites, will never reopen again because our landlords just refuse to cooperate. And even if they give us a 3-month rent free, that won't be enough. We need 6 months, we need 9 months. We need to move to turnover rents for 2021 so that we can slowly work our way out of this and get back to being, reliable rent-paying tenants again.
If they've got the telly on in number 11, what's your message to Rishi Sunak right now?
My message is thank you, Rishi, for everything you've done so far. Thank you for the business rates relief. Thank you for the job furlough scheme. Thank you for the VAT deferment, but it will all have been a waste of time if you don't provide a national rent solution as soon as possible, please.
Now, you said you were in talks with 1 out of your 6 landlords. I mean, a lot of people will find that rather staggering, given that the advice has been to talk, for landlords and tenants to get together.
Yes, that code of conduct has only been out for a couple of weeks, not even that actually. And it is voluntary. And I have to say, generally speaking, the property game is a slow moving, it's a long-term business. And landlords have been slow to respond to this crisis. They play this kind of waiting game. They sit back. They want to see what happens. They want to see what government comes up with. They will cooperate, they will help, they will join in, but government needs to force them to the negotiating table to help us reach some deals so we can work our way through this crisis and come out the other side successful, profitable, rent-paying businesses again, employing the 3.2 million people we do in hospitality.
When's D-Day? When do you have to make a decision as to whether you do reopen?
Well, we thought D-Day was today, actually, because this was the June rent quarter date. But then on Friday last week, the government announced an extension to the lease forfeiture moratorium. And so we've now got to the end of September. But who knows what was going to happen between now and then. We've got basically 3 months of not having to pay our rent and not being in fear of having the locks changed. But after that, who knows what could happen? I mean, things need to happen quickly. Things really need to happen quickly. I'm hopeful that now we've had 6 months, 2 quarters of no rent being paid by most hospitality tenants, landlords will come to the table, perhaps with a little bit of a nudge from government, and we can start to get some deals done. But there are 250,000 premises, hospitality premises in the UK. We can't all negotiate individual deals with our landlords. We need the government to provide a framework, a sort of standard form, if you will, of new arrangement for the period of crisis and the period just after it. So if we could have a year of a kind of a new arrangement between landlords and tenants and between landlords and their bankers, so they're not under pressure if they're unable to repay debt in the normal course, then I think we'll get through this.
So if I'm your landlord, I'm watching you now, I'm hearing what you're saying, I pick up the phone to you. You're not saying you don't want to pay, you're just saying we need to talk about how you pay eventually.
Yeah, I'm saying we need a rent-free period for the time we've been forced to close by government order. And then after that, I'd like a turnover rent for the next 9 months. So give me 3 or 4 months of rent-free, and then let's move to the turnover rent so we can slowly work our way out of this. Because the hospitality businesses that open on July the 4th and in the few weeks after, they're going to be half empty. They're going to be a 30% capacity. They're not going to be profitable. They're going to be losing more money by being open than by being closed. But we have to get going again. We have to open the supply lines. We have to get people back to work. We have to get people back in our venues so they can start to see that they're safe and we can start to get back to some kind of normal.
I can see you're animated. Is that born of anger or frustration?
It's frustration. It was anger initially, but it's frustration now. We're kind of resigned to the fact that, that we're not going to get these people to the table unless we have some government intervention. I sent emails out again at the beginning of this week to all 4 of the landlords that aren't responding. I've had nothing back. I don't expect to hear anything, although, we sit in wait, we sit in hope. Maybe something will happen soon, but at the moment, it's not looking good.
But literally, the next thing, the way you find out what the future holds is if you go to your premises and find that it's been locked.
That will be at the end of September, the beginning of October, yeah. On the 1st of October, if the lease forfeiture moratorium is not extended, landlords will be able to step in and change the locks at premises we've had for 18 years in some cases, for shorter periods in others.
That's awful.
It's awful. It's a business, you know, Milk and Honey in Soho is, you know, it was the world's best bar for 2 years. It's it's almost an institution. You know, some people have been there for years working there, and, you know, there's nothing I can do about it.
Well, I wish you all the luck in the world. Jonathan, really good to talk to you. Jonathan Downey.
Thank you.
Thank you.